Fred and Rose West, a British horror story. Episode 1, The House on Cromwell Street. Years earlier, the house looked like any other. It was loud, chaotic, full of children. Fred and Rose West were known in the neighborhood, though not fondly. The couple had a reputation: odd, unpredictable, often aggressive. Still, no one ever imagined what would eventually be found inside their home. Fred West, a self-employed builder, was always fixing things: electrical wires, cement floors, extensions that seemed to go nowhere. He liked to boast about how he'd made the basement soundproof. No one asked why. Rose was often seen at the window, watching the street. She ran a small childcare operation from the house. Several children came and went over the years. Some left abruptly, never to return. The couple had at least 9 children between them. They came from different relationships, with timelines so tangled even the kids didn't always know who was who. Some children were raised by Fred and Rose. Others were removed by social services. But one name stood out: Heather West. Heather was 16 when she vanished in 1987. Fred and Rose told friends and relatives she'd run away after an argument. They said she'd moved to Devon, got a job, but no one ever heard from her again. There were no calls, no letters, no sightings. For years, the younger West children repeated a chilling inside joke: "Be careful or you'll end up under the patio like Heather." It was always said with a laugh, nervous, almost believable. But by 1992, the joke had turned into something darker. In August 1992, one of the West daughters spoke to a school counselor. She described years of physical and sexual abuse inside the family home. She said she was terrified. She said her sister Heather didn't run away. She had been murdered. It wasn't the first time police had heard troubling reports about the Wests, but this time they listened. After months of investigation, social services intervened. In 1993, several of the younger children were removed from the home. Still, the West denied everything. Then in February 1994, police received a warrant to search the property for evidence in Heather's disappearance. They began with the garden patio, the very spot the children had always joked about. February 24th, 1994. The back garden was cold and muddy. Police with spades worked in silence. Fred West stood nearby, chain smoking, watching them dig. He seemed nervous but not panicked, until they hit something solid: a layer of concrete, beneath it packed earth, and then bones. The remains were badly decomposed: a pair of human femurs, a skull, clothing scraps, a clump of long, dark hair. Fred barely reacted when officers turned to look at him. Later that night, he confessed, but it wasn't Heather they had found. At the station, Fred spoke calmly. He didn't seem confused or distressed, just methodical. He drew a map of the garden, then the cellar, then the bathroom. He told police where to dig, room by room: 9 names, 9 bodies, and Heather was one of them. He called them mistakes. He said he'd kept trophies, jewelry, hair, photos. He said Rose didn't know, but the officers weren't convinced. Back at Cromwell Street, Rose was standing in the doorway when police returned. Her arms were crossed, her mouth a straight line. Fred was gone. She asked no questions. She offered no explanations. Within days, she too would be arrested. People on the street were stunned, but some admitted they'd always suspected something was wrong. The music, the screaming, the strangers coming and going, the endless renovations to the cellar. One woman remembered watching Rose hang laundry over the garden slab where the first body was found. She remembered seeing Fred carry concrete bags into the house at night, but no one had ever called. "I just thought maybe they were odd," one neighbor said, "not evil." The remains were identified as Shirley Robinson, a former lodger who vanished in 1978. She was 18, pregnant when she died. Her family had searched for her for years. They'd put up posters, written letters, visited the Wests. Fred had once looked her mother in the eye and said, "She probably ran off with a boyfriend." Her mother never stopped looking, until now. Evidence bags lined up on the lawn, Fred's confession drawings, a quiet garden, empty swing set swaying in the wind, a bulldozer arriving at Cromwell Street. The house was no longer just a home, it was a crime scene, a tomb, a monument to a decade of horror, and it was only the beginning, to be continued.